Having resolved the matter with long sigh, Gu Shizhou suddenly thought about Yun Yanli. He used to be a man of great talent with a bold vision. Unfortunately, it was not his era. Gu Shizhou took another 2 glasses of wine before announcing her departure. Shizhou, I would like to discuss some affairs with you, personally. Please proceed to my study room when the celestial flower party comes to an end. Gu Shizhou joked with a tight smile, are you trying to set me up? The Emperor Immortal could not hold back his amusement. I dare not. They continued to chat casually for a while. Soon, Gu Shizhou realized that the Emperor was a quick, definite man who was bold enough to do something and accept the consequence of his actions, which was a trait that they commonly shared. She used to treat the Emperor Immortal like a stranger. Now, she realized that she could actually keep him as a friend. His undisguised character explained why the Divine Lord would assist him on his quest to the throne back then. The two had a couple more drinks, and suddenly, the Emperor Immortal looked at her and sighed. Shizhou, you are so skilled in concealing your emotions and appearance. Actually, you look like someone I know. Hesitantly, Gu Shizhou continued, like who? The great devil, Ning Xuema, the mother of Nianma. A sudden realization hit her. Did Nianma fall for her because of his issues with his mother? Before she could begin to contemplate such a possibility, the ground started to shake violently. Gu Shizhou was utterly surprised. It was a massive earthquake. Never had she expected that the 9th heaven would ever encounter such a natural disaster. Moreover, it was a rare earthquake with an exceptionally large scale of damage. From a scale of 1 to 10, the intensity of the earthquake could easily be at 10. Many buildings were flattened. The rosy clouds were completely disarranged like a complete mess. It felt as though the sky was about to collapse. Many of guests could barely stand steadily. The earthquake came without warnings, so the people were caught unprepared. Hectically, the servants crawled on the floor, for they could barely hold themselves together. The guests dispersed in a mess, like falling leaves in a strong breeze. There was something strange about the earthquake, it was as if there was a disruption in the force of gravity. The celestial beings had completely lost their ability to fly, they could only run. As the ground was falling apart, it was more convenient to fly. However, they could only run. Gu Shizhou joined them soon enough. On her way, she even used her extraordinary kung fu to rescue 1 or 2 unfortunate servants who had so carelessly fallen into the cracks. While she was running, a pitch-black vortex suddenly emerged on the ground. It came without warning, right under her feet. Caught in the turbulence with nowhere to run, the sudden emergence of darkness cloaked her vision as she slowly fell into the whirlpool. The Muscle and Lu Wu were running along with her, not too far behind. When they saw the black vortex, it was already too late for them to warn her. In the blink of an eye, their master had disappeared into the whirlpool. My prince, may I return to my usual form? Jing Ling Air asked for Di Fui's permission, hesitantly. Di Fui threw her a look before answering, you look quite adorable like this. Jing Ling Air scratched her head in complete disapproval. Bai Zai was amazed by the transformation as well. Flying serpent, you are truly capable of turning yourself into a beautiful woman. Like I said, your human form is very feminine. You should see the look on their faces the moment you landed in the hall. Speak no more of it. Jing Ling Air responded angrily. Then, she turned to look at Di Fui. My prince, I think the drama has ended. Di Fui stared blankly at the distant sky and answered, yes, it has come to an end. She was not bothered at all. Bai Zai and Jing Ling Air looked at each other in disappointment. My prince, should you go back and check out the scene? Bai Zai offered. Di Fui let out a sarcastic laugh. It is unnecessary. I shall carry on, with or without her. In fact, I do not wish to see her anymore. Let's go. Bai Zai and the flying serpent looked at each other blankly. In unison, they then agreed to leave. All of a sudden, they heard loud crashing sounds coming from the distance. They looked back, only to realize that numerous buildings had collapsed. What happened? The flying serpent looked surprised. Is that an earthquake? The ninth heaven was similar to the mundane world. Occasionally, earthquakes happened. However, the damage was not always massive. At most, the buildings would be damaged. It could barely do any harm to the immortals, as they were all capable of flying. Di Fui was looking in the direction of the hall. Meanwhile, the flying serpent suddenly remembered that its power was tied. Quickly, it handed its hands over to Bai Zhe and demanded, "Please disarm the spell." To transform into a young lady, Bai Zhe had to suppress most of the flying serpent's spiritual power. It needed to act like a lady whose spiritual power was only at the level of golden immortal. Bai Zhe had to disarm the seal for the flying serpent to return to its original form. After all, it had no intention to keep its current appearance. Unexpectedly, Bai Zhe completely ignored its request. Blankly, it stared at the direction of the hall as well and murmured, "Something is not right." The flying serpent was getting impatient. "Hey, what is wrong? It is merely an earthquake, nothing more. Please disarm the spell." Normally, an earthquake will affect a fairly wide area. As you can see, we are only dozens of miles away from the center of the quake, but the surrounding clouds remain unaffected. Bai Zhe expressed its concerns. "From the scale of the destruction, I can tell that the earthquake must have been a massive one. Why didn't we feel any of it?" The flying serpent finally realized. If that is not an earthquake, what else can it be? Is the place under attack? It does not seem like it either. Bai Zhe had lived long enough to be the most knowledgeable one amongst the 8 mythological beasts. The catastrophe. The catastrophe resembled the effects of an earthquake, but they were not entirely the same. Earthquakes happen from time to time, but the catastrophe was a very rare event, probably once in tens of thousands of years. Not many had lived long enough to witness it. The Divine Lord had once told Bai Zhe about the catastrophe. It resembled an earthquake, with a massive destructive force enough to damage anything on the surface. Once trapped, one would lose the ability to fly as well. The only way to escape was to run. No one was safe, even the mighty immortals. There were many causes for the catastrophe, according to the Divine Lord. It would most probably be caused by the betrayal of a heavenly secret, which was supposed to be kept confidential at all times. Di Fui had never experienced a catastrophe, but he had read about it from a book given to him by the Divine Lord. He only had a glance on the subject and was not really concerned about it. Bai Zhe's explanation served as a reminder to him. It made him realize that something must have gone wrong. The one who had betrayed the heavenly secret seemed to be Gu Shizhou. Without thinking of his own safety, he quickly sprung into action. "Let's go and have a look," he told Bai Zhe. Bai Zhe turned and rushed to the hall at full speed. It was the fastest it had ever traveled. The catastrophe did not last long, only about half a minute. However, it was extremely disastrous. Most of the buildings were destroyed. The hall, which was filled with fragrance and celestial sagacity in the air, turned into a complete mess. Cracks randomly crisscrossed the ground. All the immortals were in a fluster. Their hair was in a mess, and their clothes were unkempt and torn. Most of them were injured, some severer than others. When Di Fui arrived, the hall was no longer intact. Dust filled the air, blotting out the sky and the sun. In the dusty gloom, the immortals peered from behind dark smokes. Di Fui rushed straight into the mess. Most of the immortals had yet to recover from the fright, so they did not pay any attention to him. Di Fui went around the destruction site very quickly. The woman in a fiery red dress was all he was looking for. Gu Zijia's exquisite red dress had caught his full attention. She looked so beautiful. He had a hard time trying to keep his eyes away from her. However, he failed to see her anywhere. She was nowhere to be seen. He and Bai Zhe searched for her in different directions. They had circled the area twice, but they still could not locate her. Instead, they found the muscle and Lu Wu, running around frantically. The two pets were acting a little strange. There they stood at the cracks, desperately trying to dig into it. Both of their faces were covered in dirt. Carelessly, Lu Wu did not notice that Di Fui was coming and bumped straight into him. He took a grasp of its tails, and anxiously asked, "Where is your master?" "She is gone. Master is gone." Lu Wu's skin crept at the scary realization of her disappearance. Its eyes were moist with tears. "What do you mean that she is gone? Explain yourself properly." Lu Wu told him briefly about the incident. As it recalled what had happened, it got even more emotional. "Did your master fall into the cracks?" The flying serpent approached them from behind and suggested abruptly, "My prince, did she escape using ground drilling?" "Impossible. Master will never abandon us here." Lu Wu was obviously offended. It stared at the flying serpent with angry eyes, which was still in its human form as Jingling Air. The more Lu Wu looked at her, the more it disliked her. It wanted so much to scratch her limbs. Di Fui did not answer. Instead, he pulled Lu Wu's tails, hoping that it would guide him. "Take me to where she was last seen." Lu Wu obliged and took him to the place where she disappeared. The place looked ordinary without any cracks at all. It looked as if the earthquake had never happened. "This is the place." A vortex appeared out of nowhere and pulled Master into the whirlpool. "We wanted to go along, but the vortex disappeared right before we could rush into it." The mussel finally reunited with them. It rushed forward and saw Di Fui, along with the flying serpent by his side. "My prince, what are you two lovebirds doing here? Do you have anything to do with my master?" Di Fui completely ignored it. Instead, he took the time to search the place. Desperately, he even went underground with ground drilling just to make sure she was not there. The flying serpent remained quiet for the longest time. Di Fui had not allowed it to reveal its identity, so it could only play the role of Jingling Air at the moment. It shivered a little when the mussel acknowledged them as lovebirds, but it was not allowed to comment anything. The flying serpent watched as its master went into a frantic search. His ghastly pallor clearly showed how panicked he was. He did not care about any of the mussel's sarcasm. He probably did not even hear it, for all his attention was caught in the search. Gu Shijiu had disappeared. Di Fui had dived into all of the cracks but failed to find any trace of hers. No one had seen her, not even the Emperor Immortal. Like every other immortal, the Emperor Immortal was trapped, as he too lost his ability to fly. He was injured, but it was not serious. He managed to keep himself safe with his kung fu. After the catastrophe, he soon gathered the remaining immortals to make a count on the death toll. The damage was very severe. A few servants and 2 guests slipped into the lava, buried deep within the depths of the crack. They were witnessed to be screaming and shouting in pain before their bodies were consumed entirely in the hot, molten rock. The underground lava in the 9th heaven was not the same as the mundane world. It contained the true fire of Samadhi. The heat was very intense, strong enough to burn off the skin of a mighty immortal. "My prince, Miss Gu's power is comparable to the strength of a great deity. Even if she had fallen into the lava, she would be able to survive. Perhaps, she had already escaped. Perhaps, she has already escaped to a safer place. As you know, the lava is continuously flowing. Perhaps, she has been brought to another place by the stream. We have to keep looking." Baizhe tried to sound hopeful. "That is right. God always blesses the good. I am sure that she will remain unharmed. I will send more men in the search as well," the Emperor Immortal agreed. He quietly observed Jingling Air, who had been following Di Fui everywhere. Based on his observation, it was clear that the prince seemed to be really in love with Miss Gu. Earlier, he did well to disguise his feelings for her. However, in the current emergency, he finally revealed himself for what he was. His feelings were completely unmasked. As for Miss Gu, she did not seem to treat him completely as a child. She must have fallen for him, even though she did not care to admit it, rationally. With these revelations, the Emperor Immortal would love to know how things would turn out for both of them. But where did Miss Gu go? He did not believe that she was gone for good. No one believed so. They thought that she would reappear in no time, but it did not happen. 3 days went by. Another 5 days passed. Soon, 2 weeks flew by. Then, a month. There was no news. It was as if she had disappeared entirely from the world. Di Fui tried to look for everywhere. In a frenzied hurry, he did not sleep or even rest. As time ticked by, he slowly grew less hopeful about her survival. He had looked into many places and even visited Long Sai. The 4 great guardians had brutally tortured Long Sai while he was detained. His injuries were quite severe, making it difficult for him even to leave his bed. Upon hearing about Gu Zijia's disappearance, he bore the pain and joined the search as well. He speculated, has Shizhou gone back to the lower bound? After all, her 6-month stay in the upper bound is coming to its expiration. The muscle dismissed his idea, impossible. Master will never abandon Lu Wu and I. Also, my master has to ride the fiery bird in order to return to the lower bound, via the sky-bridging tree. It is not possible that the vortex would send her back. Long Sai did not comment any further. Baizé recalled about the pillar at the peak of the 9th heaven, which officially recorded all the names of the people that had achieved a middle immortal status and above. Their names would be automatically displayed on the pillar. If he or she died, the name would be wiped off automatically as well. Before it could finish explaining itself, Di Fui was already gone. As soon as it got to the pillar, Baizé regretted its decision immediately. There were tens of thousands of names on the pillar. What frustrated it more was the randomness of the display. The names would move and switch places from time to time. Searching for one name in the sea of names was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Furthermore, Baizé was not even sure if her name was there, to begin with. Di Fui circled the pillar while carefully studying every name that flashed before his eyes. He only cared about her name. Baizé persuaded him, my prince, failure to find her name does not necessarily mean that she is dead. After all, she is not originally a member of the Saha world. It is possible that her name was never here. After 3 days of painstaking search, he finally found her name in a very hidden corner. The search finally ended, right before dusk. Baizé was deeply relieved by the discovery of her name. They found her name on the pillar, proving that she was still alive. Surprisingly, her name was rather dim, almost indistinct from the natural color of the pillar. Amongst the golden names that floated by, one would require extremely good eyesight to distinguish her name from the sea of glistening characters. Baizé thought that its eyesight was good, but after 3 days of tireless search, its vision became blurred. Images started to overlap, screwing up its eyes. Although the prince's kung fu was not as good as Baizé's, his eyes were still in good condition. Baizé looked at Di Fui, who had obviously lost some weight after the frantic search over the past 2 weeks. My prince, it is such a relief to know that Miss Gu is still alive. I think that she must have been brought back to the lower bound via the vortex as a punishment for her betrayal of the heavenly secret. It all occurred too suddenly, so she could not take the muscle and Lu Wu along. Baizé's suggestion was very logical. The muscle and Lu Wu could not think of any better reason to explain her disappearance. Di Fui did not say anything more. His eyes focused only on her name. Baizé noticed his tired, bloodshot eyes and was worried. My prince, you should take a rest to regain your strength. If she really is in the lower bound, we will never find her here. Di Fui finally sat down. He lay against the pillar and closed his eyes. Baizé dared not interrupt him. He was really exhausted, and it was time for him to rest. Recently, the young prince had not been very keen on talking. He remained silent most of the time. No one knew what he was really thinking. Baizé sighed helplessly, for the affection that the prince had for Miss Gu was far more intense than he had expected. It was worried about the prince. The love that they had was not mutual, for there was another man in her heart, a man called Huang Tu. There was no chance that the young prince was the reincarnation of Huang Tu. When he finally advanced to become a mighty immortal, her mission would be accomplished. What should the young prince do when Huang Tu is brought back alive? Personally, Bai Zai wished that the prince would let go of the relationship as soon as possible before plunging into the abyss of unreturned love. Then, the accident happened. Di Fui was thoroughly exhausted. Since he knew that Gu Shijiu was alive, he could no longer pull himself together to stay awake. Bai Zai knew that it would not be comfortable for him to sleep like this. It thought about transforming into its original form, in order to carry the young prince back onto the bed for a good, long sleep. As soon as it approached him, Di Fui suddenly opened his eyes widely and stared at it. "Master, you should rest a bit more. I shall carry you home now." Di Fui took a deep breath before demanding for a ride, however, he did not want to go home. "Take me to the fiery bird, the one capable of traveling to the lower bound." Bai Zai was surprised by his sudden request. "My prince, are you thinking of going to the lower bound? You must not. The immortals of heaven should never descend to the mortal world. Before the Divine Lord left, he reminded me never to let you leave the celestial devil continent. You cannot leave this place." Di Fui only answered briefly, "The matter is urgent. You should only answer to my call. Take me there now." If she could come to heaven, there was no way that he could not go down. Bai Zai could not reject the prince's order. The bird that traveled between heaven and the mortal world could be found in the seventh heaven. Di Fui found it easily, but his heart sank the moment he saw it. The fiery bird did not survive the catastrophe. It was turned into a rock, standing lifelessly in the distance. Di Fui circled the fiery bird 3 times just to make sure that it was really dead. He finally gave up, knowing that it would never come back alive. The mussel was stunned at the sight of the dead, solidified bird. "Without the bird, how is my master going to come back up?" The mussel was at the verge of crying. Bai Zai was still hopeful about the situation. This cannot be the only one. Usually, the bird comes in a pair. If there is one at heaven, the other one must be in the mortal world. The one here is dead due to the catastrophe, but the one down there should not be affected. It should still be alive. There is still hope for her to come back. The mussel was relieved but was not entirely satisfied with the answer. "That will take another 5 months. Once she descends, she has to stay for at least 6 months in the mortal world," the mussel complained. Di Fui frowned. "Is this bird my only way to the mortal world? I know that the immortals from heaven can descend, right?" He was reluctant to wait for another 5 months. Bai Zai heaved a sigh. "My prince, there are thousands of different worlds. If you intend to descend, you must go through the rotary platform, but the destination is completely random, even the Emperor Immortal has no power to fix a destination. What is worse is that when an immortal from heaven descends, his or her spiritual power will be reduced by half. Also, it will take at least a century before he or she is allowed to leave. This is such a great loss. If you wish to arrive at a specific destination in the mortal world, the bird is your only choice." Di Fui did not answer. The randomness of the destination frustrated him. Even if he risked everything and took a leap of faith, he could not even be sure that he would end up where she was. If things did not go as planned, he would be stranded in a strange place for quite a while. Bai Zai continued, "My prince, in my humble opinion, we should wait. Her majestic beings, the mussel and Lu Wu, are both here. She will be eager to come back, surely. It will only be 5 months, my prince, you only have to endure for another 5 months." Bai Zai was right. Under the current circumstance, he should wait. Time would pass by very quickly. Within the months of waiting, the hall was rebuilt entirely, filled with an abundance of garden flowers. The buildings were refurbished with carved railings and jade inlays. It was hard to imagine that it was once in ruins. Di Fui did not merely wait for time to pass. He took the time to travel the continent, along with the mussel and Lu Wu. He never stopped searching for her, but nothing was gained. Lu Wu had a directed audio spell in its possession. It would call her many times a day, but she never picked up. Every attempt ended in disappointment. Her name on the celestial pillar was their only reassurance that she was still alive. Di Fui did not sleep or eat well for months. He was not even interested in meditating. Bai Zhe did its best to convince him, but he barely listened to its earnest advice. Bai Zhe was worried, even more so when it thought about Gu Zijia's mission. Gu Zijia's disappearance had successfully turned the young prince into a mess. It was worried that Gu Shizhou would return someday, along with her husband. What would its young master do then? Bai Zhe did not want to picture the outcome. The young prince had fallen head over heels for Miss Gu. Bai Zhe was really puzzled. A man like its young master would not usually fall in love so quickly. It seemed like he had been cursed. Determined, Bai Zhe took the effort to disappoint him, for once. My prince, I think you might have overvalued your feelings for Miss Gu. When Huang Tu is brought back to life, she will definitely go with him. Have you ever thought of that, my prince? Meanwhile, Di Fui was busy looking for her name on the celestial pillar, again. Di Fui's mind was occupied in search of her name. However, Bai Zhe's advice managed to get his attention. I have certainly thought about that. Do you really think that Huang Tu can be revived? He answered calmly. Bai Zhe disagreed. Logically speaking, it is impossible. The revival of an immortalized lord has never happened before. I have studied the matter from many books. Usually, when the Lord immortalizes in the mortal world, they will join heaven directly. The achievements will not be erased. On the contrary, the Lord's immortalization will fail if they have violated the heavenly law to a great extent. No achievement will be remembered in the mortal world where they once led, but at least their names will remain. As for Huang Tu, there seems to be nothing left, it was as if he never existed at all. This is the first exception that I have encountered. I wonder what he did that managed to trigger the wrath of God, resulting in such a misery. Di Fui did not answer. He had talked about it with the muscle and Lu Wu months before. They told him about their encounter. Gu Shizhou met Huang Tu for the first time when she was only a teenage girl. According to them, the devoted couple was inseparable. However, they bore no impression about Huang Tu. Huang Tu's presence had been completely wiped away, but some things stayed. For example, he left his spiritual power behind. There was another person's spiritual power in Gu Zijia's body, she must have got the spiritual power from Huang Tu. The figure on the bone reflecting mirror clearly stated that she had a power equivalent of 11,000 years of experience. Someone else must have transferred the spiritual power to her. Di Fui made the speculation because he knew it was possible. His father had transferred his spiritual power to him before. As a father, the Divine Lord was worried that his son would suffer losses while he was away, so he had to transfer his spiritual power equivalent to 500 years of experience to Di Fui before he left. Therefore, he, too, had two different sets of numbers when he stood before the mirror. Obviously, Gu Shizhou was unaware of the existence of someone else's spiritual power in her body. She must have forgotten about it the same way she forgot about Huang Tu. Di Fui had met many masters who ascended from the mortal world. The one with the strongest spiritual power was a mighty immortal of level 2. However, according to Gu Zijia's strength, she was a mighty immortal at level 9, which was an extraordinary achievement. How strong was Huang Tu's spiritual power? He could have easily been a great deity. Huang Tu's presence in the celestial devil continent would create quite a stir if he ascended. Unfortunately, his existence had been completely wiped away. The expunction was so complete. There should be no way that he would be brought back alive. Also, Di Fui remained unconvinced that Gu Shizhou was already married to the man. She was, after all, a virgin. To put things into perspective, their relationship was a matter of her previous life. What happened in the past stayed in the past. He would not mind who she loved before, for all he wanted now was to spend the present with her. Even if Huang Tu were brought back to life, he would not necessarily be the same man as he was before. Di Fui was not afraid of a challenge. As long as she was unmarried, he would not give her up. He was confident that what he had to offer would be very much better than a dead man. At the very end, if the outcome were still fruitless, at least he would have no regrets, for he had tried his very best. When Di Fui noticed Huang Tu's spiritual power in Gu Zijia's body, he wanted to walk away from her. Determined, he wanted to make a clean break with Gu Shijiu, in order to fulfill her wish to be with Huang Tu. Chapter 2099 Gu Zijia's disappearance made it clear to him that he was too deeply in love with her to give it all up now. If he could find her, he would never let her go. He was willing to fight for her with all he could. 6 months passed, slowly. Early in the morning, Di Fui stood waiting at the platform, where Gu Shijiu usually landed. The muscle and Lu Wu joined him for the wait as well. Di Fui wanted to return the majestic beings to her as soon as she emerged. Also, he realized that she would try to escape from him even more if he continued to stress her out with his overwhelming affection. He had to take it slow. First, he would stay by her side as a friend and stop giving her pressure. He would not even mind becoming her disciple, as long as he got to stay by her side. He needed to put himself in a favorable position. He was confident that someday, she would finally realize how much he cared for her. Determined, Di Fui stood waiting patiently at the platform. From dawn to dusk, then from the night to another light of the day, he continued to wait for her. She did not emerge on the first day. He tried to calm himself down, as the muscle had once told him that the journey would take one whole day. The second day of waiting remained fruitless. He thought that she must have been caught up by some unforeseen circumstance. She surely would arrive any time soon. The third day and the following days were the same. Unmoving, he stood there, waiting for 2 weeks straight. Days went by, from sunrise to sunset, from nightfall to another morning again. Di Fui spent every minute in anxiety. Sometimes, the long wait would wear him out, making his efforts seem hopeless. Many immortals came and went. Many women passed him by each day, but none of them was the person he was looking for. Bai Zhe could not bear seeing him in such a difficult situation. It suggested that he should rest, while it would continue the wait while he was away. If there were any news, Bai Zhe would inform him immediately. Unsurprisingly, the stubborn prince refused. Silently, he continued to stand on the platform. As if firmly rooted, he lay against the pillar and refused to leave. Bai Zhe's persuasion was futile. Even if the 8 mythological beasts were all here to tell him the same message, he would remain unmoved. Bai Zhe was concerned about him. It started to miss the Divine Lord. If he were still here in the continent, he would know what had exactly happened to Gu Shijiu, then the young prince would not have to wait in such desperation. It was such a pity that no one could help him. The wait lasted for a month, and Di Fui finally decided to call it off. Without the muscle and Lu Wu by his side, he would think that she chose to disappear to keep herself away from him. Otherwise, she might be in the mortal world attending to some matters. However, this time was different. She did not choose to leave, it all happened so suddenly. She would be very eager to see her beloved majestic beings again. Was this the punishment for her betrayal of the heavenly secret? She must be distraught now. She was probably waiting for his help. Di Fui could no longer sit around, waiting for her. In the 9th heaven, there was a rotary platform. It was where the immortals would leave the Saha world for their exiles in the mortal world. It was a scary place. As soon as one leaped from the platform, he or she would hardly be able to come back. Moreover, the rotary platform was poisoned. Each victim's spiritual power would be reduced by half. More seriously, his or her memory would be partially erased. The rotary platform highly resembled the cycle of reincarnation in the underworld. The rotary platform was blood red, and it hung in midair by countless tiny chains formed by clouds. Beneath the rotary platform was a stream of tempestuous liquid known as the Celestial River. Rumor has it that one could never turn back after stepping onto the rotary platform, and he or she ought to jump off the platform in a specific period of time. However, no one would know which realm he or she would fall into. If the individual refused to jump, the rotary platform would turn upside down to push whoever was on the platform into the celestial river. In fact, the water in the celestial river could melt anything in the world, hence, nobody could find a tiny piece of bone from there, not to mention anything alive. At the moment, Di Fui was standing somewhere nearby with the muscle and Lu Wu by his side with a grief expression. All the celestial cultivators who came here were forced to get onto the rotary platform. However, it was extremely rare for one to come here willingly like Di Fui. Bai Zhe tried his best to persuade him by tugging his sleeve. "Your Highness, please do not do this. The probability is so low, you might not be able to find her even if you jump in there. What if she comes back after you jump into the river? You will miss each other again. Your Highness, please wait a little longer. Perhaps, she will return after a few days. Your Highness, do not be reckless. The Divine Lord had said that you should not leave the continent, otherwise, they would have brought you along when they left." Your Highness, Bai Zhe almost ran out of words to convince his master. He has been telling Di Fui the same thing over and over, and it seemed to work a few days ago. However, it did not seem to be effective now. Di Fui went to check on the celestial identity pillar again yesterday. He realized Gu Zijia's name was fading as if it would just disappear anytime soon. She must be trapped somewhere. He must save her regardless of the price he needed to pay. That was the only thought Di Fui had now. Di Fui had found a tracking spell from an ancient book in his father's study room. According to the book, there was a very high chance for someone to find a person when jumping off the rotary platform if they carried with them a favorite belonging of the one who was missing. The muscle and Lu Wu should be Gu Zijia's favorite companions, hence, Di Fui decided to place a bet by bringing both of them along as he did not want to continue waiting fruitlessly. Since he had made up his mind, he did not want to delay the arrangement any longer. He told Bai Zhe to keep Gu Shiju in the Saha world if she returned after he jumped off the rotary platform, he would come back after 100 years. Bai Zhe, keep my words in mind. After that, Di Fui held the muscle with his left hand and Lu Wu in his right. He was ready to jump off the rotary platform. Suddenly, the directed audio spell at his waist blinked rapidly. Quickly, he picked up the call and heard Ting Shi from the other end. Your Highness. Your Highness. Your parents are back. Di Fui was surprised, and Bai Zhe was undoubtedly relieved by the news. Your Highness, the Divine Lord must have a solution. Why don't we go home first? Let's go. The divine couple returned home in time. They would not get to see their son anymore if they were a minute late. They have been away for several missions for quite a while, hence, Ning Xuema could not wait to come home as she missed her little Nianma. She suggested to her husband to visit their son since they were going to pass by the continent. They were only halfway done with their missions. Fortunately, her husband seemed to have predicted something and rushed home with Ning Xuema. They decided to go back to the Fantian Palace first but only found Tingxi alone. Tingxi was so happy to see them. It was as if he finally found his savior. He immediately contacted Di Fui and reported to the divine couple that young master was on the way home. Ning Xuema was relieved by the report. They have not met for 6 years, so she was not sure how much the little boy has grown up. After all, the boy still looked around 5 or 6 when they left. Every single she missed her son, she always imagined his baby appearance. Ning Xuema had seen many interesting things while traveling around in many different continents. She always bought whatever toys that she thought kids would love to have and put it in her storage space so that she could give it to her son when she meets him. Ning Xuema felt really guilty for leaving her son alone in this continent and always wished to do something for him when she had the chance. Suddenly, Tingxi cheered from outside. Young master is back. Ning Xuema immediately got up and was ready for her son to crash into her embrace. She knew that her boy was cheeky, he would definitely run into her arms when he sees her. She also wished to hug her son. However, she was utterly shocked when she saw him. The one who came in was a very charming teenager with a sky-green robe. He was tall, and his features were amazingly attractive, especially his eyes. The only flaw was that he looked slightly exhausted, as if he had not slept well for a few days. While Ning Xuema was still wondering who that celestial being was, the teenager greeted, "Father." "Mother." "Pack." The teacup in Ning Xuemo's hand dropped to the ground. "What?" Shinjioli did not speak a word but refilled a cup of tea for his wife and then turned back and said, "Wow, look at you. You have grown up." 15 minutes later, Ning Xuema finally accepted the fact that her baby boy had become a teenager. She was kind of happy that her son has become a golden immortal. What made her feel disappointed was that she was not able to witness his growth. It seems that she would have to keep this feeling for the rest of her life. Subconsciously, she still missed her baby boy. Initially, she wanted to give a big hug to her baby boy, however, he was already a teenager. She could not stop looking at her son as she truly felt that he was as charming as his father, but his features did not quite look the same. She almost doubted that someone had camouflaged her son. Thus, she shifted her gaze to the main entrance from time to time when she talked to her son, as she was half expecting that her little Nianma would happily run in and ask her to carry him. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Although they had been separated for 6 years, the reunion brought happiness to all of them. Shinjioli gave Di Fui a test, and to his surprise, his son has mastered more than what he could imagine, and his power was beyond his expectation as well. He was delighted with his son's advancement, hence, he gave 2 sets of books to his son and claimed that it was specially designed for his son to practice based on his physique. Shinjioli even prepared a tableful of dishes for him. Di Fui tried to help out a little in the kitchen, although that was certainly not his forte. Shinjioli was shocked as he realized that his son, who had 0 talent in cooking, could finally cook. Di Fui was especially good at making fish soup, and it was decent. Di Fui was very well behaved and busy helping Shinjioli while he was cooking. Shinjioli also enjoyed his son's company, but he suddenly asked a question when the food was almost ready. "Baby, are you looking for something from me?" The celestial rabbit meat in Di Fui's hand almost dropped to the floor. His father has never called him a baby. What was wrong with him? Di Fui wanted to rub away the goosebumps on his arms. He looked at his father and realized he did not change one bit. The Divine Lord was smiling as he looked at Di Fui. His father did not always smile, however, when he did, it meant that he was going to trick his son. The worst outcome would be that he would be trapped in a wizardry barrier. That was usually just small matter to Di Fui. However, he had limited time to waste now. Therefore, he decided to be frank. "Father, could you help me to locate a person?" "Who is that? A man? Or a woman? Married or single?" Di Fui felt helpless as his father always asked critical questions which often put him in a difficult position. "You know that person, father. The masked woman, she is still a virgin." Shinjioli looked at his son with a half-grin. "Oh, I see. I know her, we met a few times before. She is considered as your senior. I was thinking to interact with her more often and see if she could be your mom's friend." Di Fui was upset. He quietly ground his teeth and said with a serious tone, "Father, she is only 232 years old, but you are more than 10,000 years old. At most, she is your junior, and we are of the same generation." Shinjioli frowned with surprise. "Really? She is so young. Interesting. I cannot believe that she is so powerful at her age. She is indeed a genius. Nianma, she is much stronger than you in this area. You can probably be a mighty immortal when you are at her age based on your current progress." Since Shinjioli noticed that an outsider was already more advanced than his son, he decided to provoke his rascal son. Di Fui tried harder to endure and decided not to argue with his father. "Indeed, she is smart, and I admire her. Father, could you help me find her, please? Her whereabouts are always unpredictable. Why are you looking for her all of a sudden? Are your teachers not good enough? Are you looking for another one?" Di Fui was frustrated. He honestly thought that they could no longer continue the conversation. His father was a fabulous and famous fortune-teller in the Saha world. What he predicted was usually accurate. However, Di Fui thought that his father's intelligence was declining after traveling for too long. Otherwise, how would he not know what his son was going through now? Perhaps, Di Fui was looking at Shinjiuli as if he was looking at a retarded man. Shinjiuli asked as he tapped on Di Fui's shoulder, "My dear son, what are you cursing in your heart again?" Di Fui did not speak, but there was humiliation in his gaze. After glaring at each other for a while, Shinjiuli could sense a strong aura coming from his son. After all, he was no longer the cutie pie he used to know. He has the aura of the master of the heavenly law now, but he had yet to know it. He sighed and continued, "Fine, what is it then? You can tell me frankly." Di Fui stared at his father for a moment and finally decided to briefly tell his father about the story. Certainly, he did not tell him every detail. For example, he skipped the fact that Gu Shizhou liked someone else, and that might be her husband. He mainly told his father about how they met, what they have gone through, and also the heavenly torment. In the end, he looked at his father with a pair of hopeful eyes. She was brought away by a black cyclone during the heavenly torment. Do you know where is she now? Could you bring her back? Shinjiuli sighed. Shura world. What? She has disclosed a heavenly secret. Therefore, Shura world is the punishment she deserves. Di Fui's face sank. He heard about Shura world before. It was the most impoverished and deserted place of all worlds outside heaven. This barren land had nothing to offer. According to legend, the site was full of ferocious beasts. The humans, monsters, demons, and beasts were all living together, but the humans were the most insignificant race. Most of the time, the people there were enslaved. Life in Shura world was made difficult by the adverse living conditions. Thus, all the living beings there became extremely savage. The immortals were thoroughly disgusted by the place. Hence, Di Fui had never thought that Gu Shizhou would be sent to such a terrible place. He finally knew why she could not make it back. He finally understood why the glimpse of her name on the celestial pillar became gradually weaker as days went by. Her life in Shura world must be tough. The heavenly order was cruel. The rules were so harsh. Shinjiuli could see that his son was heartbroken about the harshness of the heavenly laws, so he decided to share more with him. The reason why we had to leave you behind and travel to another continent is that we too have violated the heavenly law. We were forced to flee under the pressure of the heavenly law, so we had no choice but to leave. I violated the heavenly laws a few times before, putting your mother and me in many difficult situations. The heavenly order is so savage, Di Fui had to express his frustration. Shinjiuli threw his son a glare but explained calmly, the heavenly laws are made by the master of heavenly laws. Although the laws themselves are dead, the master of heavenly law is real and alive. Di Fui did not know that there was a man behind the law. Definitely found the convict of all the unfortunate events in his life. The master of the heavenly laws seems like a god of no mercy. Shinjiuli could not help but agree, for they share a common hatred for the same enemy. Indeed, I agree. Both father and son had suffered. For the first time, they found the common topic to vent their frustration. Soon, both of them began to criticize the master of the heavenly laws. Driven by curiosity, Di Fui asked, "Father, have you met the master of the heavenly laws?" "I certainly have. In fact, we are closely connected." Shinjiuli was the guardian of the heavenly law, so he must have seen the master of heavenly law before. Thus, he was not wrong when he said that they were closely related. Di Fui continued his questions, "Father, you can foresee things. Can you tell if she and I are fated to be together? If I told you that you two were not meant to be together, would you let her go?" Shinjiuli answered with another question. "Of course not. I will change our fates and connect us together. If so, why should you bother? Remember, your fate is in your hands," Shinjiuli hinted. "How do I go to Shura world?" He did not forget the most important detail. Hesitantly, Shinjiuli added, the place is of no good at all. The chances are that you will not come back again. Do you want to go? Yes, I want to get her out of there. Don't be silly. She is stranded, even with her immense level of spiritual power. Your lousy presence will not be of any use. Shinjioli had to shatter his confidence. How would I know if I never try? Di Fui remained determined. Try. What if this is a one-way ticket? Maybe both of you should try to make another child. After all, you have plenty of leisure time. Shinjioli was speechless, for Di Fui was ready to abandon them before he was even married to the woman he so desired. However, it would not be long before Di Fui realized his true destiny. Shinjioli thought that maybe he should start planning for a second child. Is your bracelet still around? Shinjioli asked. It surely is, Di Fui reassured by flashing the bracelet before his eyes. He had tried so many ways to get rid of the bracelet before. However, his attitude about the bracelet had recently changed. With care and protection, he had to make sure that the bracelet was not scratched even a little bit. Di Fui even demanded to possess the bracelet from the flying serpent, the one that was gifted to it by Gu Shizhou. The flying serpent treasured its belonging very much, so it was not very happy when Di Fui requested for the bracelet, but it was too afraid to complain. Shinjioli took a careful look at the bracelet and was satisfied. Very well, then. Shortly after, he handed 2 dishes to Di Fui and demanded, serve the dishes. Let us have a reunion dinner. Remember, you have to make your mother happy. I will only be delighted when she is pleased. In the right mood, I might have the idea for your rescue plan. His father's sarcasm always came in a personalized style of his own. Di Fui was already used to it. Don't you worry, he took the dishes and left swiftly. The reunion dinner was very delightful. Di Fui tried many ways to make Ning Xiuema laugh by cracking every joke that he could think of. Finally, she was no longer depressed. Ning Xiuema felt that she should give her son the many toys that she had collected from different places while she was traveling. After all, the toys were meant for him. Although he looked like an adult, he was only 7 years old. Di Fui was not embarrassed to accept the gifts. He no longer needed the toys, but his future child might like them. On the rotary platform, Di Fui stood alone. Carefully, he studied the channels that circled the platform. There were many pathways, crisscrossing each other meticulously like a spider web. He did not bring the muscle and Lu Wu along. As informed by Shinjioli, their level of spiritual power was not enough for them to take the risk. If they insisted, they would not make it out alive. Even worse, they could end up being burned alive by the fire of hell within the channel. They might end up being the takeout that Gu Shizhou longed for after being stranded in the desert for so long. Gu Shizhou cherished her majestic beings very much. If they were dead, it would be even more difficult for him to win her heart. Before leaving, he had ordered Bai Zhe to take care of the muscle and Lu Wu, so others would not mistreat them. Briskly, Bai Zhe agreed. The Divine Lord had other missions to attend to, so they only stopped by in the continent for a day and continued their journey the next day. To keep Ning Xiuema at ease, Di Fui chose to conceal the fact that he would be journeying to Shura World. He wanted the best for her, to do what she had to with Shinjioli without having to worry about him. Although Shinjioli was always sarcastic to his son, he was actually a loving father. He spent the entire evening explaining to Di Fui about the detailed ways to enter Shura World. Also, he taught him a few kung fu techniques and even offered him many magical items just to make sure his beloved son would survive the harsh world out there. With all the help, Di Fui stood confidently on the rotary platform, knowing that he would definitely make it to Shura World and reunite with her. The rotary platform offered a dazzling display of many channels. Within the mess, Di Fui finally found the gray pathway that he wished for and took an immediate leap. Shizhou, I am coming for you. We have been apart for so long. Did you miss me? He wondered. However, he suspected that she probably thought more about her majestic beings. After the leap, he finally knew how complicated the channel actually was. He was falling at high speed but in a rotating manner. He felt like a meteorite falling through the sky. The temperature was very high, as Shinjuli mentioned. It was like he was about to be burned alive. Luckily, he came well prepared. Other than the safety enclosure on his body, he also had some magical items around to keep him alive. He was confident that he would make it through the channel. Even with the protective layer he wore, Di Fui could still feel his skin burning. He was hurt, despite being well prepared. Gu Shijiu, on the other hand, was taken into the vortex wholly unprotected. How did she make it through? How was she right now? On the bright side, her kung fu was powerful, so she would not have suffered too much. Knowing her abilities, she might have even ended up being a prestigious leader of the Shura world. There were barren hills and unruly waters everywhere. The place was, indeed, very deserted. The mountains were dangerously high, with precipitous rocks and cliffs. At the top, only a few trees remained. The water in the valley did not come from a fresh and clean source. Instead, the entire river was black and pungent. On the way to the high mountains and lofty ranges, rocks filled the path. He took a look at his 7-colored bracelet. At a fixed angle, he could probably use the bracelet to sense her presence. Soon, a flaw. There were more than 100 of these savagely fierce beasts before him, each with its own unique skill. The most powerful ones could even appear and disappear mysteriously. Apart from their speed, they also had great strength. Di Fui could get himself killed even with the tiniest mistake. Under the siege of all the beasts, the battle became tougher. He had just arrived at this place, so he was not very used to the gravitational pull and climate. After running for only a short while, he was already panting heavily. Moreover, the fight with the first dozen beasts already wore him out. His face bathed in sweat. You cannot do it that way. You have to kill their leader. Otherwise, they will keep coming. A voice came as a warning from afar. Di Fui was caught in a trance by the familiarity of the voice. It sounded just like Gu Zijia's voice. He looked up and was immediately stunned. There was a figure standing on a rock, not too far away. Di Fui could not tell if. Di Fui turned and lunged towards the two massive beasts. Gu Shijiu did not answer him but indulged herself in the comfort layer. It felt very soft and cozy. Some beasts surrounded her, but they could not get past the protective barrier. She was very safe within the circle, hence, she put her attention on him instead. Like a tiger in a pack of wolves, he battled in full rage. In high spirits, he swung his sword in the air repeatedly to clear his path towards the massive beasts. Any beasts that stood in his way were slaughtered. They were not quite protective of their leaders. Soon enough, he got himself close enough to the beasts that he was aiming for. After a brief fight, the beasts laid by his feet, lifeless. Di Fui thought that he could finally heave a sigh of relief since, after the death of the leaders, these little ones should retreat any time. He was worried about Gu Shijiu, so he quickly checked on her. There she was, standing in the circle. Although it was the leader of its clan, its kung fu was not particularly powerful. Under Di Fui's strong and powerful attack, it had no chance of escape. Furthermore, the surroundings beasts were unable to react in time to protect it. The little black beast was dead, its body was slashed neatly into two perfect halves. Di Fui was finally relieved. His wrist was numb after the intense battle, so he took some time to rub it. I had never expected that the little one was actually the leader. What a horrible place. Shijiu. The moment he saw her, he wished he could just pull her into his arms and give her a tight hug. He needed to feel her presence after being worried for so long. However, he was also worried that his sudden gesture of affection would scare her away. Therefore, he decided to behave and stay by her side as a friend. He needed to take it slow. Now that they were out of danger, he was eager to talk to her. He needed to know how her life had been. Di Fui was unaware of what had happened to Gu Shijiu. He also had no idea how they had mistaken her gender, but he was sure about one thing: she was a woman. Smilingly, he swept his eyes across the men. A man can, of course, be engaged to another man. Haven't you heard of homosexuality? Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. The crowd was bewildered. Gu Shizhou gave him a stern look in the eyes before responding coldly, this is not the place to talk. Tai Dan, Tai Niu, and Go Sheng, take the bodies and let us head back. Yes, Brother Stone. The men dispersed to collect the dead bodies on the ground. Stone, Tai Dan, Tai Niu, and Go Sheng were such down-to-earth names, which Di Fui had not heard of in a very long while. He looked at Gu Shizhou and still could not get his eyes away from her flat chest. Why did she conceal her gender and act like a man? Did she wrap her breasts with a thick cloth to flatten her chest? Had anyone told her that wrapping her chest was bad for her breasts? What are you? The weather was scorching, enough to make Di Fui grumpy. The air was so dry, it was hard even very to breathe. Di Fui was still unfamiliar with the climate here. He tried to sense the surroundings, only to realize there was no spiritual aura present. As far as he was concerned, every place would undoubtedly be filled with a certain level of spiritual energy. It was only a matter of intensity, but this place offered no spiritual aura at all. It was, indeed, a horrible place. Di Fui was disturbed but was not really concerned. With her by his side, everything else was not a problem anymore. Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. While in a daze, a loud growling noise could be heard from afar. It was loud enough to cause the ground to tremor. We have to leave now. Go! Someone shouted out loud. Everybody else started to move very quickly. Gu Shizhou picked up her speed, only to realize that Di Fui was still strolling behind. A plume of black smoke started to emerge not too far behind him. Soon, Di Fui gave her an assuring look and smiled. All right, I will not say anything stupid. Anyway, Di Fui would not usually say anything unnecessary. He would only say what he should. Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. Gu Zijia's heart throbbed when he smiled at her. She looked up at him, and their eyes met. His eyes were gorgeous, shining in the light. At this very moment, he was staring at her with a warm smile. His thick eyelashes curved into two delicate arches. His smile was pleasantly warm, like the beautiful spring breeze. The young man loved to smile, apparently. They had only met for a short while, but she had seen his smile many times. He looked like a man of good character who was well behaved. Although Gu Shizhou had lost her memory, she could still tell if a person had a good personality. Under the young man's charming smile, she could tell that he was not a simple man, he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. He seemed easygoing, but he was surely an authoritative man with a strong influence. The angrier Stone was, the more reluctant he became to socialize with the villagers. He would stay home most of the time. Most people would treat him as if he was transparent. In the village where most people were known for being strong and masculine, his presence was quite negligible. The clan leader was anxious that his son would never become someone useful. However, he also believed that the sorcerer would not make a false depiction about the future of his son. Thus, he would often force his son to practice kung fu while at home. Occasionally, he would try to push his son to achieve his potential, even if it meant being harsh. In a sudden righteous ardor, his son decided to leave a letter to the clan leader, saying that he would prove himself by hunting a ferocious beast personally. Then, he sneaked out alone, not to success, but his death. Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. Although Stone was not a very significant member of the clan, the sorcerer once predicted that he would encounter an odd ad. Chapter 21:13. She coughed and pulled her hand back. All right. That's enough. Can you talk properly without any skin contact? She softly demanded. Di Fui smiled with a sense of helplessness. I was lost in the moment. All right, I will do as you say. Gu Shijiu looked askance at him, as though disbelieving. Was he the same to every girl he met? She felt slightly uncomfortable, for she did not completely trust the man. Brother Stone. Brother Stone. Someone was calling out her name like he had just found something. What is it? Gu Shijiu teleported to where the man was, leaving Di Fui behind. Before she left, she warned, I will make a thorough investigation of your origins. I am warning you now. It is best if you behave yourself. Otherwise, I will not let you get away easily. Di Fui gave her a helpless look in return. How could he possibly misbehave? His sole purpose was to get her out of place and head back to the world where they once belonged. He observed the men who were full of vigor and vitality. They had no spiritual power at all, only physical strength. It was strange. Shinjioli had once told him about the Shura world in general. The people here should be able to cultivate, even to become celestial beings. According to his dad, the spiritual power here was not as abundant as the upper bound but was not entirely scarce. Why didn't he feel the slightest bit of spiritual power here? Was the entire Shura world the same? Or was it only the valley? The streets were covered unevenly with various stones. On the sides, there were low houses made of stones with roofs made of hay. Every house was already occupied. The return of Gu Shijiu and her men created quite a stir in the streets. Everyone came to celebrate their rewarding return. When they saw the bodies of the beasts, they accepted them happily. The men had their faces painted and their bodies covered in animal skins. Some covered themselves in rough, coarse clothes. Di Fui found these people unbelievable. The way Di Fui dressed made him stand out as an outsider. His clothes were made of silky satin that flowed gracefully in the wind as he walked. In addition, there was a crown made of white jade, setting off his black, silky smooth hair. He appeared refreshed and refined among the hunters, standing out like a distinguished man in a common crowd. He looked extraordinarily charming and attractive. Di Fui was smiling all the way until he heard what people were gossiping about him. Ah, who is that? Looking so beautiful like a little bride. He looks a little weak. Look at how fair his skin is. I heard that Brother Stone found him. He has claimed himself as Brother Stone's fiancé. Ha, don't be funny. How can Brother Stone, a man who is equally wise and strong, have a fiancé? He looks more like the bride, in my opinion. Look at his sweet little face. Even a girl will not look half as good as he does. Di Fui had seen the world long enough to get used to being the center of attention, but it was his first time to be mistreated as a weak man or even a bride. His smile soon disappeared. There were girls in the streets, too. Their skin was tanned and muscular. Their faces were not painted, thus exposing their true texture. Their dresses were made of coarse clothes. Bracelets hung loosely either on their wrists or ankles and jiggled as they walked. These girls were enthusiastic. They rushed forward as soon as they saw Gu Shijiu. Brother Stone, you are so brave. Look at how many phantom beasts you have brought. The first girl complimented with immense adoration. Brother Stone, this is a bone bracelet that I have just made. It is for you. The second girl looked at Gu Shijiu lovingly. The exchange continued frantically. These girls surrounded Gu Shijiu with infectious enthusiasm and chattered like magpies, thus pushing Di Fui to the side. Di Fui was speechless, for he finally realized that men were no longer his biggest concern. These women were the one he should be aware of. Gu Shijiu was surrounded, so Di Fui could no longer fit in the crowd. He did not intend to fight with the women. Casually, he stood aside and hugged his arms as he observed. A man named Tai Dan approached him for a small chat, but before he could touch his shoulder, Di Fui had already slid about 10 feet away, without even shifting his body. Tai Dan was amazed. He was greatly impressed by Di Fui's speed. Also, he noticed that Di Fui did not like to have anyone standing too close to him. Could he actually be a woman? The women here were usually bold and passionate. They were not usually difficult to deal with. They would often wrestle one another. Some women were even stronger than men. If a woman fancies a man, she would confess directly, and if the affection were mutual, they would move into the same house and address themselves as man and wife. The gender roles between men and women were not typically divided. The men and women would always walk together, shoulder to shoulder. Skin contact was not an issue at all to everyone, except Stone. Even the real Stone, who was shy and introverted, and the present Stone, who was frank and authoritative, shared the common behavior. They were not keen on skin contact. It appears that the newcomer was the same. He seemed even more reluctant than Stone to get in touch with others. Did you come from the city that only exists in legends? How did you meet Brother Stone? Tai Dan was curious. Di Fui frowned and asked him, have you never been to the city? Tai Dan answered in a depressed tone, I certainly have not. Once trapped, the people here can never escape, so we have never seen the city. In fact, even our clan leader has never seen it. Then, how did you know about the existence of such a city? It is only a legend, passed from generation to generation. Di Fui seemed interested. Tell me more about it. Tai Dan gave him an unimpressed look. Hey, I was the one who asked you first. Have a sip. Di Fui offered him his leather bag that carried a bottle. Tai Dan accepted it and turned the cap to open the bottle. His eyes danced with merriment the moment he found out about the content. Wine. It smells so nice. He took a sip and was completely lost in the taste. It tastes so good. Okay, you must be from the city. The clan leader once told us that only people in the city could afford such decent drinks. No, actually Brother Stone knows how to make wine, too, but it does not taste as good as this. Di Fui threw Gu Shijiu a look. She was still busily caught in the crowd. After the wine, Tai Dan became completely obsessed. Driven by the excitement, he had forgotten about his question for Di Fui. Instead, he answered accordingly to every question that Di Fui had for him. Soon, Di Fui had an idea of how Gu Shijiu lived her life in this place. Also, he managed to find out more about the clan. The village had not always been here. About a century ago, a group of hunters came to the valley and were trapped, so they started their lives anew here. The mountains were once lively. Among the rocks, there was a forest, full of greens and vitality. Animals set foot in the forest as their habitat. However, ever since the hunters arrived, the trees had disappeared completely. The animals went extinct, too. Rocks were the only remains. The only being that lingered on was the phantom beast. These phantom beasts regenerated quickly, so they could not be killed. There were many of them, all equally fierce and savage. Even the greatest hunter could not make it out of the valley alive. Those who tried would usually end up in miserable deaths. Throughout the years, no one had ever escaped. However, the discovery of the cave and its channel gave the hunters a second chance to survive. However, the living conditions in the refuge were very harsh. The typical lifespan of an inhabitant in the Shura world was 300 years. The hunters used to be masters in cultivation. Many of them had extraordinary spiritual power, but their power slowly depleted throughout the years. Moreover, there was no supply of spiritual power anywhere, so they could not possibly resume their cultivation practices. As a result, most of their lifespan was reduced to only 70 to 80 years. The villages were the second or even third generation of the hunter's descendant. Most of the elders had already passed away. The clan leader was the only elder left in the clan. Certainly, the tales of the foreign city lived on. According to legends, the foreign city possessed spiritual power in their land. There were magnificent buildings, gorgeous clothing, and scrumptious food. The closest city from where they were was about 100 miles or so. However, the journey had become impossible for them to embark on. Tai Dan had also told Di Fui many things about Stone. He then turned to look at Gu Shijiu, who was still being surrounded at the moment, and let out a smile. The sorcerer's prediction was not entirely wrong. Stone would emerge as the savior of the village, but it was not the stone that they had thought. With Di Fui's help, it would not be difficult to escape from the refuge in the valley. However, he was not sure if the city was really safe. What had happened a century ago and turned this place into a living hell? Also, what kind of animal was out there, making thundering growls? What was concealed underneath the layers of thick, gray fog? Meanwhile, the bottle of wine Di Fui had shared was able to convince Tai Dan that Di Fui was a trustworthy friend. Tai Dan was not a keen drinker. He got drunk only after a few sips. After chattering for a while, he gave Di Fui a gracious tap on the shoulder before he added, "Brother, you are a capable man and a real friend. I do not know how you and Brother Stone met, but I do know that if you really like him, you should express your feelings boldly. However, there is a problem. Brother Stone prefers women. He will not usually come into contact with men. If you were a girl, he would definitely fall for your beauty and your strength." Di Fui was impressed. "I will express myself boldly, for sure." This time, he would not hold himself back. "That is right. You must be determined. Actually, our village is not against the idea of homosexuality. No rule has stated that you cannot marry a man." That sounds good. Either way, I will be happy as long as he is by my side. When we are finally together, I will treat you with more drinks. Brother, you have my support. I will talk about you nicely to him later." Tai Dan was very supportive of Di Fui. All of a sudden, their surroundings came into complete silence. Tai Dan noticed something strange and looked up immediately. A man came into sight. He was obviously intimidated. "The clan leader is here," he announced hoarsely. Di Fui saw a man standing not too far away from him. He was strong and tall. His strength was fully realized in his gigantic, muscular frame. His face was covered in a full beard and a layer of thick paint, making him look very distinguished. The people were intimidated by his presence. The moment he appeared, the noise in the crowd died away. All of them faced him and greeted courteously. However, Di Fui only looked at him with a smile. He did not greet him. Although Di Fui had concealed most of his splendor family background, he still possessed the same old temperament, which was intimidating for most people. "Stone, who is this?" The clan leader consulted Gu Shijiu about the newcomer. Before Gu Shijiu could answer, Di Fui explained himself. "I am her fiancé. You must be the clan leader, am I right? We need to talk." The clan leader's eyes flashed with uncertainties, and his jaw dropped. The others did not know about Gu Zijia's real identity, but he was well aware of it. Her fiancé was here looking for her now. The clan leader sighed and agreed. "All right, follow me." The clan leader's house was a two-story building made entirely out of stone, like a little castle. To play the role of Stone, Gu Shijiu had to share the house with the clan leader. She was staying on the first floor. The ground floor was where the clan leader's room and the living room were located. The clan leader brought them to the living room. Gu Shijiu was already familiar to the surrounding. Di Fui, on the other hand, was unimpressed. The house was so simple and crude. The only pieces of furniture in the living room were the stone table and chairs, without any cushion to keep warm. Did Gu Shijiu really spend the past 6 months in such a shabby place? It was no wonder her body was getting weaker, thus, explaining the instability of her name on the celestial pillar. Although the clan leader felt a sense of enmity towards Di Fui, he still welcomed him as a guest into his house. He pointed at the chair and asked him to sit. Di Fui did not do as told. Instead, he took out 2 brocade cushions and offered one to Gu Shijiu. As for the clan leader, he should continue enjoying the solid hard chair that his tough body was made to endure. The clan leader noticed the luxurious cushion. Then, he fixed his eyes on Di Fui and asked him frankly, "Where did you come from? Do you have any proof that you are Stone's fiancé?" Di Fui showed off the bracelet on his wrist and answered smilingly, "She likes to give away bracelets." This is a token of love that she has given to me. Gu Shizhou remained quiet as she observed the bracelet. Indeed, it gave her a sense of familiarity. The bracelet looked like a high-end item with an extraordinary origin. Was it really a gift from her? Was she once a rich woman? When she arrived in the Shura world, she had nothing else but a dress to cover up her naked body. Hence, she had certainly not expected that she would be so generous in the choice of gift. The clan leader looked at the bracelet fixedly. There was a flow of spiritual power within the body of the bracelet. Spiritual power was the element that they most lacked in this world. He reached out his hand and requested, "May I have a look of your bracelet?" Di Fui pulled his sleeve down to hide it away. Briskly, he rejected. "You may not." The clan leader did not give up. "If you do not show me, how are you going to prove that it is a gift from her? You will not be able to tell even if I show you." The clan leader was speechless. "Show me," Gu Shizhou offered. Di Fui agreed swiftly. "Sure." He put his wrist on her palm and said, "Have a look." Gu Shizhou was not quite comfortable with the idea. Frowningly, she continued, "Take it off and show me instead." Di Fui heaved a sigh of helplessness. "Have you forgotten? I cannot take it off once it has been worn." Was that a logical explanation? Gu Shizhou did not believe him, surely. She tried to take the bracelet off his hand but failed miserably. "How is that even possible? How did I put it on for you?" Gu Shizhou felt something strange about the bracelet. Di Fui hesitated. "Have you really forgotten it all?" He gave her a look of disbelief. She was chagrined at her inability to recall her past. In distress, she pinched her lips into a tight line. Obviously, she had really forgotten it all. Di Fui sighed. "Back in those days, you carried a box around with the bracelet within it in hopes to find your perfect husband. As told by the myth, it will only secure itself around the man who is destined to be with you. During my birthday, you showed up with the bracelet. It picked me and secured itself on my wrist." The sequence of the events was pretty accurate, but what he said was not exactly what had happened. His obscure version of the story had successfully led Gu Shizhou into believing that the bracelet was actually a love bracelet. She thought that it worked almost like an embroidered ball that was used to choose a husband. Their engagement seemed to be a result of the random selection. Just at that moment, a few pieces of memory flashed by. Gu Shizhou somehow recalled a birthday party. She gave out a gift box, and when the box was opened, a glass dragon emerged. The scenes were in bits and pieces, so she failed to connect the dots. Nevertheless, Gu Shizhou decided to try and relate the events together. "Before the bracelet secured itself on your wrist, was it in the shape of a golden glass dragon?" Di Fui's eyes darkened in response. "Did you get back your memory? Just answer me." "Yes." Gu Shizhou was moved. The pieces of memory in her head were real events that had happened before. She could finally remember a bit of her past. She tried to think more deeply from the clues given, but an intense headache stopped her from doing so. The pain was as if someone had put a nail in the back of her head, and the intensity of the pain made her break out in a cold sweat. Her body trembled in pain. "What is it?" Concerned, Di Fui grabbed her hand tightly. "Do not try to help her recall her memory. Whenever she tries to remember something from the past, she will get a headache. It has been going on like this for a long while." The clan leader sighed. Still trembling, Gu Shizhou reached into her pocket and took out a small bamboo bottle. Inside, there was a green pill. She immediately wanted to put it in her mouth but was halted by Di Fui. Give it to me." Gu Shizhou begged him with a trembling voice. Di Fui took the pill in his hand. With a sniff, he could tell the function of the pill. The pill works only as a painkiller. It does more harm than good to your body. You should not take it. With a flick, the pill went straight into the pile of rubbish in the corner. Gu Shizhou was at a loss for words. The refuge was very short of resources. In fact, the western part of the village was barren land. The best crops that they could afford were sweet potatoes. There was no source of medicine anywhere. She had to brave her way through dangers in the valley in order to get the painkiller, which almost cost her life. It was a very rare herb, so she would not usually eat it. To her utter surprise, Di Fui treated the precious pill as if it was a waste. Before she argued, Di Fui took out another bottle of medicine that carried a shimmering purple pill. "Take this." He fed her the pill. The smell of the pill was refreshing. It was the typical kind of scent that every good pill bore. With a sniff, she already knew it was good. She put it straight into her mouth and was ready to scoop some water to swallow the pill. Before she could get up, Di Fui immediately offered her another bottle of liquid. "The water is not clean. Come, have this." She did not know how the liquid would taste. However, from the look of the bottle, she could tell that it must be something expensive. The bottle was made of transparent crystal, carrying some clear liquid within. She took a sip and was overwhelmed by the pleasantly sweet taste that lingered on her tongue. Slowly, she drank it all. She could not help but look at Di Fui with curious eyes. His robes were thin, hanging loosely over his body. How did he manage to keep so many things within his robes? The space in his sleeves was like a goldmine that offered him anything that he wished for. Di Fui's pill worked well. Very soon, the pain in her head was significantly reduced. It worked so much better than the medicine that she made herself. For the past 6 months, the pain had been haunting her from time to time. Hence, she would not take the risk to think about her past. However, now, with the help of the pill, she would not mind the risk at all. It is not hard to create the pill, but the ingredient is uncommon. It will be quite difficult to find in the Shura world. Don't worry. I still have plenty for you. You can have as many as you want. Di Fui explained as he knew exactly what she was thinking. Gu Shizhou was bewildered. The pills are yours. What is the difference between what is yours and mine? Gu Shizhou did not know how to answer. She was still not convinced about the entire situation. I cannot be sure that you are her fiancé based plainly on the bracelet. After all, it is a one-sided statement. I will not simply believe it. The clan leader wrinkled his brows in disbelief. He looked at Di Fui like he was a con man who was here to kidnap his beloved daughter. Di Fui was not troubled by his denial. You are not related to her at all. Why should I be concerned if you choose to believe my words or not? The clan leader did not know how to respond. I do not think that he is entirely trustworthy, too, Gu Shizhou interrupted. Something told her that it was not the truth. Do you have any other proof? Di Fui thought about it for a moment and asked, do you remember how you look like without the paint? Gu Shizhou nodded. She would remove the paint every night before bed, so she surely remembered. Di Fui searched his sleeve and found 2 scrolls. Open it. Gu Shizhou did as told and unfolded the scrolls. She was shocked by what she found. There were 2 drawings. Each drawing had different expressions of a young woman. There were moments of joy, displeasure, rage, and nonchalance. She was the woman of his drawings. It was so lifelike, almost indistinguishable from her real appearance. The woman in the drawings was depicted in many different outfits of black, pale green, and fiery red. Every outfit was equally mystique and ethereal. The style was almost the same as what Di Fui was wearing now. Intuitively, Gu Shizhou took a look at the shredded clothes that she had. There was no style at all, even though the clothes were only her cover-ups. She took a look at the woman in the drawing and touched her own face in comparison. Each day, she painted her face with grease paint and worked whether rain or shine. As a result, her skin became quite tanned and rough. There was some acne on her face, too. Was she so beautiful before? The drawings had somewhat cleared Gu Zijia's doubts about him. The unbelievably handsome man knew who she really was, at least in the past. Also, he was very much in love with her. Otherwise, he would not carry her drawings everywhere. She stroked the woman in the drawing thoughtfully and asked, "Did you draw this?" "Of course. Do you think it looks like you?" "It does. I did not know that you could draw so well. There are many things that I can do. You will be surprised by what you can find about me. I am worth more than treasures in a treasure box." "You will know more when we get along," Di Fui told her. Modesty was clearly not his way. Gu Shizhou was curious about his sleeve. "What else is in there?" The sleeve worked like a treasure box to her. Di Fui could not hold back his amusement. "You can have what you want." He was very well prepared for his exploration out of heaven. Chapter 21:19, Getting Along, 2, Gu Shizhou remained unconvinced. "You must be bluffing." Di Fui observed her carefully. She used to act like an elder or a senior, especially when she looked at him with those eyes that clearly mistook him as a child. He had rarely seen her looking so innocent like a little girl. It was a shame that her face was still covered in paint. Nevertheless, Di Fiachart throbbed in excitement. "You will believe me once we get to know each other better." Gu Zijia's heart started to race. After this revelation, she felt it would be normal for her to spend more time him. In fact, she even began to think of their future together. "Do you have any other proof?" Gu Shizhou asked again. Was the drawing not enough? Perplexed, Di Fui tried to recall. Then, he approached her closely and whispered into her ear in a hoarse voice. "I know that there is a spot with the shape of a butterfly wing somewhere below your collarbone." She had revealed some parts of her body during their treatment for her injury. Although her body was mostly soaked in the water, he could still see the spot clearly when she lifted her arm. Gu Shizhou froze momentarily at the discovery. Flushed with embarrassment, she retreated to avoid getting too close with him. "How dare you?" The area below her collarbone should be private. He would not have seen it if they were not intimate. Perhaps, the young man was telling the truth. He could really be her fiancé, but how far had their relationship gone to? Had they had any physical intimacy? Gu Shizhou believed most of his words by now. Relieved, she wanted to find out more about her background. "Did you come all the way to look for me?" "Where did we come from?" "We?" Di Fui liked the term. He noticed the clan leader's fixed stare. Apparently, he was equally perplexed. Di Fui smiled. "Heaven." Gu Shizhou remained speechless. Utterly shocked, the clan leader almost fell from his chair. He had spent some time in the outside world, so he knew that the greatest man with the greatest cultivation out there would not be half as good as what Di Fui had achieved. Especially when he managed to carry so many peculiar things with him, those things certainly did not belong here. Moreover, Gu Shizhou and Di Fui looked very different from the people here. Their skin was white and fair. Their facial features were delicate and exquisite. Also, the color of their eyes was pure black. He had doubts about Gu Zijia's background when he first saw her. Now, all his doubts were finally answered. They were from heaven. God must have sent them to the Shura world to get these people out of their misery. The clan leader kneeled immediately and pleaded for their help to save the lives of the villagers. Di Fui's face darkened with uncertainty. "With our strength and skills, it is not impossible to bring all of you out of this place, but a foreign city may not necessarily be safe." The clan leader looked unsure. He had the same doubts before but was not keen on finding out at the time. Their hope about the outside world was the only pillar of survival. If the world out there was just as chaotic, or worse than what they had here, was there anywhere else they could go? Di Fui answered slowly, "You should not be depressed about it. The condition of the outside world remains an unknown factor. Our primary goal would be to make it out alive from here. Tell me more about this place, I will try to figure something out." The clan leader would not hide anything from him anymore. He told Di Fui everything that he knew. There would only be 6 hours of daylight each day. For the rest of the day, the sky would be mostly covered in a layer of dark, gray fog. However, if one were to come into contact with the fog, he or she would dissolve and vanish into a pool of blood. The thundering growl was the sign that the fog would approach. Whenever they heard the sound of the animal, they had to return to the cave immediately and seal the entrance with the rock. The valley was about 800 miles wide, and the outskirt of the valley was mostly sealed with a layer of red, thick fog. The fog acted like a barrier that prevented them from crossing the border. Gu Shijiu first discovered the red fog barrier. Those hunters who rushed to the barrier before were unfortunately killed by the phantom beasts before they even got close to the edge. Gu Zijia's teleportation skill had saved her life, as the phantom beasts could barely touch her. However, she could not penetrate through the fog barrier. Also, the closer she got to the edge, the more phantom beasts were around. She could not stay for too long. Her last adventure almost cost her life. Even though her teleportation skill could protect her, she was injured. As you know, she is a tough child. Knowing that everyone in the village had high hopes for her, she did not let anyone know about her injury. She had to treat her own wounds in a slow recovery process. In fact, she had a high fever for a few days in a row. I was so worried that she would never get well, so I wanted to stay by her side to take care of her, but she would not let me. This place is short of many medical supplies. She could only use the traditional way to reduce her body temperature. The clan leader sounded proud and yet guilty. I admire her. As a woman, she definitely possesses great determination. Concerned, Di Fui was not happy about it. When did it happen? About 2 weeks ago. She has just recovered. Today was the first time she went hunting after the recovery. That was where you met each other. Di Fui took a deep breath before pulling Gu Shijiu away all of a sudden. I need to check your injury. Gu Shijiu was obviously surprised by his sudden demand. She refused to go with him. There is no need for that. I am well now. There were many wounds on her body. Some were quite private, so she did not want to show him. Some were just scars. However, her strength was incomparable to his at this moment. Soon, he managed to drag her back to her room. Her room was upstairs. It was scantily furnished with only a few things. There were a stone table, a stone chair, and a stone bed. There was some grass on the bed, covered with another layer of coarse cloth, so she would not touch the grass directly every time she lay down. The number of greens in the valley was rather scarce, so the grass was not soft and fresh. Instead, it was merely a layer of dried leaves and dried grass. Even with a layer of cloth on top, it would not be comfortable to sleep in the bed. There was another piece of cloth at the edge of the bed that could be considered as a blanket. Di Fui was not impressed at all. Is this what you get after all that you have done for them? A pigsty would be even better than her room. Gu Shijiu was delighted to see his handsome face burning with indignation. Actually, my room is the best place in the entire village. Others do not even have a bed sheet or a blanket. They sleep with the dried grass on their beds, or on a pile of hay on the floor, she explained. Speaking of which, she was a little proud of herself. When I first came, they did not even have clothes. Now at least they wrap their waist with some leaves or animal skin. Actually, I was the one who found out that there's a forest on the west side of the tribe and that the bark could be made into rough clothes after some softening. However, there were quite a number of ferocious beasts in the forest, and it is not easy to collect such bark, hence, not many clothes could be made. No wonder everyone there was underdressed. It was a primitive tribe. Di Fui could not believe that she had been staying there for more than a year. Based on Di Fui's appearance and cleanliness, Gu Shijiu felt that someone like Di Fui was used to fine service, hence, he definitely would not sit on a dirty bench. Therefore, she opened her blanket and said, "Sit here." However, before she could complete her sentence, her eyes widened. All of a sudden, her rundown room looked completely different in the blink of an eye. The entire place was refurbished with new furniture that was made from rosewood. It looked vintage and elegant. A soft futon even covered each chair. Needless to say, it must be very comfortable. Di Fui even took out a small bed frame with a thin mattress which perfectly matched the table and chairs in her room. Gu Shizhou looked at him, thinking that her eyes had deceived her. She watched him take out a tea set, clothes, a blanket, and many more items from his sleeves. She pursed her lips and walked toward him while staring at his sleeve. Do you have a magic bag in there? Di Fui smiled and lifted his sleeve. He then stretched his arm to her. Here, check it out. Gu Shizhou did not hesitate to check it. Anyhow, he was her fiancé, hence, she had nothing to worry about. Her tan little hand had stretched into his sleeve to try to retrieve the magic bag. However, she found nothing but his soft sleeve and smooth skin. Where did he hide the magic bag? Gu Shizhou did not want to give up and continued searching. Unfortunately, she did not find anything but the sleeve of his undershirt. Perhaps it was inside the undershirt. Out of curiosity, Gu Shizhou examined him more closely. She touched his forelimb and then his arm. Initially, Di Fui just let her touch anywhere she wanted as he found her very adorable. However, as she continued searching, his gaze darkened as he felt aroused when Gu Shizhou touched his skin. There was a lot of dead skin on her hands at the moment, hence, he was not supposed to feel this way. Nonetheless, he was undoubtedly aroused. Gu Shizhou was a stubborn person. Certainly, she would not give up until she found the answer. Hence, she continued searching until her hand almost reached his shoulder. What disappointed her was she could not find anything even after searching for such a long time. That was just a sleeve, nothing else. Gu Shizhou finally gave up. However, when she was about to withdraw her hand, Di Fui grabbed her wrist and pushed her down. Gu Shizhou stepped back and slumped on the small bed. She was shocked and wanted to get up. Nevertheless, Di Fui pressed her down. Do not move, let me check your wound. Where is it? He was so close to her that they could exchange their breath. Gu Zijia's heart was racing. I am fine. It is fine now. You better tell me where it is, otherwise, I will check it by myself. Di Fui's body pressed on hers as he evilly teased her with a gentle yet a dominant tone. Gu Shizhou subconsciously blinked her eyes repeatedly. It all felt too strange to her. Furthermore, she usually did not like to have close interaction with men, however, she did not feel irritated by Di Fui. Instead, she felt a sense of familiarity and security. In fact, she longed for his embrace. He seemed to be her fiancé, for real. Perhaps, they were even very close. Since he was her fiancé, Gu Shizhou decided not to be too conservative. She gently cleared her throat and spoke, Fine, I will show you, you get up first. She was very nervous as he held her down. Her heart was racing, and she could barely breathe. Finally, Di Fui got up and let her go. He sat beside the bed and checked her pulse. A moment later, he pulled back his hand and asked, Are you nervous? Your heart is racing. Gu Shizhou blushed. I think the weather is too hot. Di Fui almost laughed and replied with an evil smile, I see, the weather is really too hot. Gu Zijia's face was even hotter now. She was embarrassed and shouted, I do not want you to check my wounds anymore. There was still some paint on her face, however, Di Fui could still see that she pursed her lips and that her eyes were wide open. That was his first time seeing her getting angry. Thus, he decided not to tease her anymore. He raised his hand and placed it on her shoulder. Silly, why would you get angry when I try to please you? Come here, let me check on your wound. Gu Shizhou was somewhat surprised at herself, she knew that she was generally not a hot-tempered person. However, she had no idea why she just wanted to be unreasonable in front of him. Nevertheless, his calmness rubbed off her. Finally, she lied down again. Her injuries were located at her ribs, her thigh, and her abdomen. The wounds were rather big, and she was obviously not fine even though she said so before. The scars were terrible. As she lied on the bed, she felt so comfortable, even though Di Fui was trying to remove her top and pants to check her wounds. Di Fui looked worried when he examined her wounds. This is what you mean by fine? I bet it will leave a permanent scar. You will even feel discomfort during rainy days. I am fine, the scar is nothing. Nothing was more important than surviving. Just because you do not care, it does not mean that I do not care. Di Fui replied with an icy tone. Gu Shizhou was speechless. She almost asked, "What do you care about?" but she chose to keep her thought to herself. Di Fui did not continue talking but helped her to apply a cream on her wounds. The cream was cold, but her heart was warm. People who lose their memory always feel insecure and would search for someone to support them. However, Gu Shizhou had no one to help her, and instead, everyone seeks her support here, and she has become their hope to survive. Thus, she tried her best to be strong in front of them. No one cared whether she was tired or if she needed a shoulder to cry on or support her. She did not even dare to speak a word when she was injured. Hence, Di Fui's actions were quite contrary to how she had been treated. He had forcefully entered her life since he came here, treated her injuries, and sought justice for her. That made her feel appreciated and secure. Gu Shizhou obviously felt that this was foreign to her, but it did warm her heart. Her gaze stopped on his face as she watched him get busy with her wounds. He looked so lovely when he was focused on a task. Suddenly, the house went quiet, and some incense came out from the furnace at the corner. The house was filled with an aroma that smelled like mint leaves. It could help to calm one's mind. Gu Shizhou has been busy for the entire day, and she was exhausted, hence, she fell asleep. When she woke up, she was shocked when she opened her eyes. Everything in the house was completely different. There was a new bed drape on her bed, and her old bed was missing. It had been replaced with a vintage double bed. The bed drape was white, and it covered up the entire bed. There was also a white mat on the floor, which was very comfortable. There was a table, chairs, a partition, a tea table, a tree display, and many more items of decoration in the house. Her gaze stopped at every corner in the house before she realized she was left alone in there. She had no idea where Di Fui had gone. Did he decorate all this? He was such a mighty person with great capabilities, excellent kung fu, handsome looks, and even a pair of nice hands. Is he really her fiancé? Gu Shizhou was still uncertain about the answer. She removed her blanket and got off her bed. She found the old patriarch idling nearby. Patriarch, where is he? Gu Shizhou addressed him as father in front of others, but she called him patriarch when they were alone. Stone. Miss Shizhou, Mr. D invited you to Moyo Lake when you are awake. Moyo Lake was the only source of water in the tribe. It was connected to other streams outside the tribe. Although it was called a lake, it resembled a pond. The left side of the lake was higher than the right side, so the people took their drinking water from the higher side and bathed on the other side. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Since more than 100 people were living in the tribe, there were some rules when it came to bathing. The females should bathe between 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. while the men should bathe between 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., it was the time for the patriarch and Stone to bathe. Gu Shizhou looked at Hourglass before she came out. It was the time when the men were supposed to bathe. What was he doing there now? Did he plan to bathe together with those men? Suddenly, a scene of Di Fui bathing with other men flashed across her mind. She immediately shivered as she truly felt that the scene felt so wrong. She could not imagine further. Gu Shizhou rushed over, only to realize it was very quiet at the lake and she did not see anyone else present. How come these people did not bathe today? Were they trying to skip their bath? The people did not have the habit of bathing regularly when Gu Shizhou had just arrived. Usually, they only bathed once or twice a month. The weather was scorching, hence, it was reasonable to smell a stinky scent around people. Since Gu Shizhou had her say in the tribe, the very first thing she did was to force everyone to bathe every day. Eventually, they kept the good habit. But today, she took a stroll around the lake and realized no one was there. However, she noticed a white tent behind the rocks at the higher end of the lake. She decided to enter the tent to find out more. It was there that she found Di Fui sitting in front of the tent. There was a small tea table with some snacks and tea, while his robe was fluttering as he was chilling in there. Gu Shijiu looked at the white tent behind him and then looked at him again. She was wondering how he could live such a luxurious lifestyle wherever he visited. Perhaps, he planned to make this place his home. You are awake. Di Fui looked at Gu Shijiu joyfully. You seem to have gotten better, he continued as he pushed some snacks toward her. Try some. Certainly, Gu Shijiu would not decline such offers. She took one and put it into her mouth. It was soft and tasty, which was perfect for her. For someone like her, who only had very simple food every day, that was considered a delicious delicacy. Moreover, she was already hungry, hence, she ate quite a lot. She had already finished all 4 plates of snacks when she realized how much she had consumed. Yet, when she lifted her head, she saw him staring at her with a pair of charming eyes. Her heart raced a little. She was curious. Why are you not eating? I cannot compete with you. Di Fui teased her as he lifted his hand to remove the leftovers at the edge of her mouth and then put it into his mouth. Gu Zijia's heart skipped a beat as she found that every single move of his was so natural. She truly found all his actions a little too much to handle. Does everyone from heaven carry many things with them wherever they go? Is that a treasure bag? Why don't I have one? Di Fui looked at her and sighed. It is not a treasure bag but a storage space. You need to use your spiritual power to form it. You had it previously, but you have lost your power. Hence, you probably cannot access it for the time being. So, do you mean to say that I have one and that everything is still there? The only problem is I cannot open it. Theoretically, you are right. Could you help me open it, please? Di Fui shook his head. I cannot. In fact, he tried earlier when he treated her wounds. However, the storage space was tightly closed, and he could not even find a single way to open it. The size of an individual's storage space was related to its owner's spiritual power. Gu Shijiu possessed the spiritual power of a mighty immortal when she was in heaven, hence, her storage space must be very spacious and difficult to open. Anyone that possessed a lower spiritual power could not open it. To make matters worse, Di Fui only had 20% of his spiritual power left. Hence, he couldn't open it. Gu Shijiu needed at least 10% of her spiritual power to open her storage space. Therefore, it was not an option for the time being. The negative impact of that place was that whoever who came in would lose their spiritual power bit by bit. Di Fui had no choice but to act swiftly before he loses his power as well. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. He looked at her face which still covered with paint and asked, are you still planning to continue carrying Stone's name? Gu Shijiu shook her head. I had no choice before, everyone needed hope, and that was the only way to unite them. The prophet had said that Stone would bring them out when he turns 18, but I look like I am turning 19 soon. They will be disappointed if I cannot complete the task. That was the reason she tried to break the wizardry barrier and ended up getting severely injured. She sighed as she played with the teacup in her hand. I am bearing everyone's hope on my shoulders, I cannot collapse. She could not even show her weakness. The only thing she could do was continue fighting even though she was exhausted. Di Fui filled her teacup with tea and spoke slowly, I am here now, you do not have to push yourself. It was heartwarming. Gu Shijiu appreciated the benefits of having someone to support you. She could finally heave a sigh of relief. Do you have any idea how to break out? I think so. Di Fui took out a few more fruits and placed in front of her as he explained his plans. The fruits looked very fresh and tempting. Initially, Gu Shijiu only listened to him talk, but eventually, she took the fruits and started eating. She had already finished 3 fruits when Di Fui finished explaining his plans. Secretly, Di Fui found her hilarious but also felt sad for her at the same time. He then took out some minced meat for her. As expected, Gu Shijiu did not hold back. Fortunately, she also provided some suggestions for Di Fui throughout their conversation and only ended the topic when both of them confirmed the plans were flawless. According to their plans, Gu Shizhou did not have to continue carrying Stone's name, hence, she planned to reveal her true appearance after washing her face. Di Fui stopped her and added, "It is all right, I have got all the tools ready, check it out in the tent." Indeed, Gu Shizhou found a bathtub and towel in the tent, and the water was warm. Apparently, everything was in his control, and he was well prepared. Gu Shizhou really looked up to him for being so thorough and detailed despite his age. He looked like he was only 17 or 18 years old, but he should be slightly older. Gu Shizhou asked Di Fui before he left the tent, "How old are you?" Di Fui was stunned. It was a difficult question for him to answer because the age gap between Gu Shizhou and Di Fui was one of the problems they encountered in the past. If he answered 7, she would not believe him and might run away with the excuse that she did not want to hurt a child. He turned around with a smile and threw the question back to her. "What do you think?" Gu Shizhou looked at him with a serious expression and guessed, "I think the immortals in heaven are not young anymore, 200 years and above?" Di Fui coughed. He did not admit it but did not deny it either. "You have sharp eyes." Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. The answer misled Gu Shizhou to think that she made the right guess. Thus, she asked, "How about me?" 233 years old. This time, Di Fui said the truth. Gu Shizhou touched her face and could not believe that she was so old. "Do not worry, 200-year-old people are still considered as teenagers in heaven." Di Fui tried to comfort her. Gu Shizhou heaved a sigh of relief. "When did we know each other?" "I knew you since I was a child." "Oh, we are childhood friends." Gu Shizhou got it right. However, she came back with another question, "It does not sound right, I remember that you said this bracelet was given to you by me during your birthday. You knew me much earlier, but you cuffed me with this bracelet on my birthday." Now she realized that she was the one who admired him first. That was embarrassing. However, she thought that perhaps it was in her nature to be someone who would chase after whatever she wanted. She was generally very proactive anyway. It was normal for her to like him since he was so charming. She truly thought that she had good eyes. She even praised herself in her heart. She added as she glanced at him, "Why do you sound pissed off about the bracelet? Are you not happy to be mine?" Di Fui paused and continued, "Honestly, I was not willing in the first place. You tricked me, but then you fell for me later on." Gu Zijia's eyes sparkled, proudly. "Yes, I completely fell for you. You are the only one I want." Di Fui's eyes darkened. "I took a very big risk to come here since you were missing and almost lost my life because of you. So, Shizhou, you must marry me, there is no way for you to escape. You cannot dump me." It was indeed a very sweet confession. Gu Shizhou was showered with romance, and that was the first time she truly felt happy in the past 6 months. Therefore, she decided to give him her vow. "Do not worry, I will not escape or dump you. No one can take you away from me." She added after looking at the bracelet, "Since I have cuffed you with this bracelet, I will not let you go, you cannot escape even if you tried." Di Fui smiled as he nodded. "Do not worry, no one can take me away, and I will never run away." The words lifted any weight of Gu Zijia's shoulders.